for taking the time to hear me out today, and also just for the very professional and friendly way that you have run this recount this morning. I've certainly been impressed, and I think I speak on behalf of the rest of the observers. We thank you for the time and the detail and the patience that you have shown us this morning. So, as you know, petitions were filed seeking this recount, and those petitions requested not just a recount, but a forensic evaluation of the electronic voting machines that were used in these precincts in this county. And that's because a recount with an electronic voting machine doesn't really mean much, right? If the machine had been infected, if the memory cards had been infected, simply putting the memory card back in the machine and hitting run again is going to get you the same results. We were joking yesterday that it's kind of like going to the same doctor for a second opinion. What we are trying to ensure is that the bedrock of our democratic Republican form of government which is the vote, is secure and reliable. And if it is, that's something that we would know through this forensic evaluation, and if it's not, that's also something this forensic evaluation would be able to tell us. And so it's crucial that we know whether we need to fix our systems or whether we can have continued confidence. And as we know, this year, the election was subjected to unprecedented interference and attacks that are just, that's just clear. And I'm not talking about this county in particular, but just already what we know, the DNC was hacked. Obviously, they had what they thought was secure email systems. The personal email of the chairman of the Democratic candidate was hacked and infiltrated. The voting systems and voter registration systems of Illinois and Arizona were infiltrated. So these are problems that we know exist and are potential issues here. So what we're asking for specifically is for our experts, including Mr. Halderman, I was on the phone with this morning, who has written about the specific types of machines here, to be able to, and this is something that we would pay for, is that clear, in an expeditious manner, looking for access to the GEM system, the electronic system, the management system, a random sampling of the machines that we've looked at, and the random sampling of the removable hardware, including the memory card that we were looking at earlier. We know that we're under a deadline here, and we certainly respect that you all need to move expeditiously. But this is authorized under the statute. In my opinion, it is required, as the statute requires a recount in a method other than what was used to originally tally the vote. This is under 3154E. And the method used to originally tally the vote was kind of what we've already done. So this would be a method other than that method, and even if you disagree that it's required, it's certainly authorized by the discretion that the law gives to you as the board. So that's my pitch, and I think obviously the sooner we can get this going, the sooner we can resolve this, and we can know whether we can have full confidence in the results that we received, or whether there are issues that we should address by changing the election system or by seeking other legislation, etc.
I have one question. And let's say I have one question. Obviously, you can ask anything you want as well. But I'm curious about why you would ask for. I mean, I hear why you would ask for forensic evaluation machines. But we just, as I've been standing in the back of the room there, I've heard any number of questions about who gets to touch these, how can you have access to this, all that. Bringing in somebody to do that is touching those machines, and it seems to run counter to everything we've talked about, and actually talked about since I was here in 2006 when we bought these machines. I know Doris was, Gail wasn't, but so I mean that's a big concern on my part.
And I just want to make sure I understand. Is your concern that if we allowed somebody in to forensically examine it, that itself could alter the data?
Yes.
And that would be then unprotected?
Yes.
Well, it's I'm not a technology expert myself.
And I'm not either.
So all I can say is that these types of reviews have been done in the past and have been ordered by courts to be done in the past. So my guess is that there's some way to protect against that. Additionally, given that we will have done this recount here today, possibly that would be then less of a concern. But to be perfectly honest, that's something that I would need to run by the experts that we've kind of talked to, who would certainly understand that issue much better than I would. My guess is that there's an easy answer to that, given that they are primarily concerned with vote integrity and the integrity of these systems and these experts, and so if their system would damage that integrity, it's not something that they would want to be doing. So my guess is that there's a straightforward answer to that, and I can try to work on getting that.
Right.
I actually had something to say, if I may. I am a technology expert. I've been a programmer for 28 years. I'm not in communication with J. Alex Halderman, so I have no idea what he intends. But were I to perform a forensic audit of the systems here, I would want to do something along the lines of a chain of custody where I would have an observer from the Board of Elections or someone of your designation observe everything I say and do. That's just my 2 cents.
Thank you.
I'm concerned about the certification that we have to deal with under the law.
Can you speak up, please?
That's a concern of mine. I definitely would not want an outside forensic specialist without being overseen by someone from the county specialist. But my concern is any touching of our system. It's incorporated in here, it's not connected with the internet for hacking purposes or anything on that part of it. But any touching of the system, the software, or anything like that would decertify our machines on top of everything else.
I would think if they've done this kind of audit before in other cases, that they, again, have a way to work around. And
Yeah.
I don't think it would decertify your machines. I absolutely saw and thought of that concern. But if they've actually done it other places, I understand your concern.
In Pennsylvania?
They've done it other places in Pennsylvania?
That's my question.
Oh, I don't know.
Do you have any questions before we go to John?
You're concerned under state law that we would
No,
no.
Well, and not just state law, I'm just looking at the ethics behind it and so forth. And I am very, very concerned about that. We have taken so much to keep it all integrated locally. There are so many steps and what might seem redundant over these last 10 years that I am not for taking all 6 of them, using the certification for the whole entire system.
Now, that's actually something, and I don't work for the sign campaign, so I can't volunteer this, but something that you can actually handle contractually. If they were going to request this forensics, you could actually ask them to indemnify you so that if you lost your certification, they would be required to cover the cost of getting a certified machine.
John?
Well, I'd rather you, Tim, you spoke with Election IQ, the county vendor this morning.
That's who, I mean, I would definitely need someone here representing us, multiple people, and that would be one of the multiple people besides some of our own IT people to look over issue, security, and what's actually going on, and know more than I do.
Did they tell you of any of their concerns when you related this proposal?
But the biggest was the certification. What would decertify? During a forensic investigation, is any software put on the machines, on the server? Is there anything? Because that would decertify well, you're looking at GEM, so that would decertify the entire system. If you're putting software on the machines, so.
So the question is, could you copy it onto another
Right,
machine?
I think that would be the
And then,
idea, is to copy the
test it on a
GEMs.
separate machine.
Exactly.
That's possible.
So the same way
I
you've
think
got clean flash
We'd have to
drives
talk
now.
to
you
the
could put it-
vendor of GEMS itself. There aren't many cases where there are multiple systems running at the same time. decertification is my biggest concern.
But I do think that you can handle that. When I worked in corporate law, we had like investigations, we never handed over the computer, right? We imaged the computer
sure.
and let somebody test the images. So I think you could do something similar in a situation like that, right? Application.
Could
But
I just
wouldn't
add
want my own
something?
people involved too.
I appreciate that you're being so very conscientious about this, and I'm very grateful to you for that. But I would hate for this decision to rest on speculation here. I'd like to have somebody who is a computer expert, who is technically superior in that question, based on the question.
Obviously, this has all been happening very quickly, and we've been scrambling, and because of the Pennsylvania system, where it's every county or every people are scattered, we have people working in Michigan and Wisconsin, so couldn't bring an expert with me. We have Mr. Halderman's affidavit here that was submitted with the petitions. I know that he is writing a new affidavit that is, I believe, specifically about these machines here that might be ready as of now. I don't have any cell phone service down here, so I'm not entirely sure. But that's something, I mean, if there was a phone call scheduled that you wanted to do, we could make that happen. It's really kind of up to what you all feel comfortable with. I certainly understand the concern about decertification. On the other hand, if the concern can't be about keeping in place a system that might itself have flaws at all costs, right? Like at a certain point, we need to look into these systems that are admittedly, and we all acknowledge are old and outdated, and that are sufficiently vulnerable that other states have decertified these machines, these types of machines, as appropriate for use. So while I don't take that concern lightly, given the cost of the new election system, and I understand that, it also sounds like this is a year where that's already being explored, and I don't think that preserving the system can be the only concern here. The concern has to be ensuring that we have a system that we can all rely on.
Let me just respond, not to be argumentative, and probably I'll throw my county executive's hat here for just a minute. I certainly would not agree with your statement that these are outdated machines. And our number one priority, I think, as a board here is to be in, and I believe the staff too, to ensure that our elections are run without any flaws. And I, for one, am comfortable that's been done and has been done, and that will continue to be with these machines we have on hand right now. And we've talked, and what I've mentioned inside there is we've got a 5-year plan that said that logically we should be looking at replacing these someplace out, but it's not next year, which just happens to be a big election year for my position and a lot of the county positions. So I'm not jumping on and agreeing, and not, if I'm shaking my head, it's because I'm hearing you.
That's fair.
It's not that I'm agreeing with.
I understand.
John, any inputs, thoughts, options you can share
Well,
with?
in 2012, the Pennsylvania Commonwealth Court, in the case of Banfield versus Eichley, 51A 3rd 300, considered the issue where electors filed a petition seeking to compel the Secretary of the Commonwealth to decertify various direct recording electronic voting systems, which is what I believe that we have here. And the court would not decertify those systems. The court found that the system meets the requirements of Pennsylvania law. And at one point, it even said, in dealing with some of the arguments before it, while petitioners are obviously concerned with the vulnerability of the DREs to malicious or mistaken code, or a hijack through man-in-the-middle attack or human error, the certification and approval process is designed to provide security from such occurrences. And they also determined that in a situation such as we're in the middle of right now, it is sufficient to recanvass and retally. So you're not legally obligated to do this. Certainly I would agree that you have the discretion, if you wanted to, but I think you have to consider it being done in a way where the county is fully indemnified and be satisfied that that indemnification is monetarily available to you if you were going to do it. But I do not see that you're legally required to do this.
Gail?
I guess I have a question for you. Is your concern that this exercise will bring about a substantial change in the vote totals, number one, or is it that the system needs to be changed? Because if it's the first, I haven't seen evidence that that's going to happen. So if it's the second, since we are in the year when we are going to be reevaluating all this, maybe this exercise, without going into the forensic evaluation, would be something to consider as we decide what kind of system we're going to use going forward. So that's my input.
I think our concern from the beginning has never been a partisan issue about who is winning or who is losing or who could get more votes or fewer votes from a recanvass. It is about ensuring the integrity of the voting process and ensuring that we have voting systems that we can trust and rely on. And given the extraordinary interference that we saw in this election throughout the country, that is really our concern here. That
Do you say that? I don't know it. You've mentioned as we know, and I don't know it. So I'm only relying to prove. Yes, I'm only relying on what you said. All I'm questioning is forgetting all the way everywhere you mentioned Arizona and Illinois. This is Pennsylvania. This is our concern. It seems to me we're in the best possible place to say, okay, this is the kind of thing we need to take into consideration as each county, I guess, determines how they want to do their system. But I don't see that the forensic evaluation of the machines is going to be helpful at all if we decide, for example, to go to paper ballot.
Well, if the forensic, I think the idea is that you wouldn't know if the machines are vulnerable or have been compromised without that forensic evaluation. So it's useful to you as you're determining how to move forward or what types of system to put in place. I certainly, just personally, I think paper ballots, optical scan ballots are a safe and reliable way to go.
Also way cheaper.
And they're
The
cheaper, so
huge
there you go.
cost of replacing the machines, that's what we're facing, and so.
So there you go. So this forensic analysis might be able to help you convince others that these machines are not reliable. And it's important for us to know that whether or not we're able to tell if that changes the vote totals, it's important for us to know whether the vote is reliable.
I just haven't seen evidence that we even need to go there,
Well,
that's all.
But that's, I mean, respectfully, that's because we haven't gotten the evidence yet. I mean, there's not going to be evidence that something went awry until we can actually examine the evidence.
Any other inputs from anybody? Anybody have a motion, or do you want to leave it to me to think one, or?
Yes.
Somehow I knew you were going to.
You can word it better.
No, I'm not great at wording, but my recommendation would be that we reject the request for the forensic analysis of machines. And Gail, I think you're on the right trail as down the road, but we're down the road, and we're going much further down the road before we're ready to evaluate what machines we go to. And yeah, I would have loved to have gone to optical scan if they were, just from a price standpoint. I think we have
I thought this was coming up too.
I think it depends a lot on the state and meetings he's involved in, and as we know, none of that moves very swiftly.
Okay,
But
fair enough.
I would make the motion that we reject the request for the forensics.
And I'll second it because I'm very
I have a
strong at
question.
this point.
What is the main reason for your rejection of that proposal?
The certification.
Risking losing certification of
Okay.
machines.
However, if other states and other counties have not lost their certification after a review, a forensic review per se, are you still concerned that you will lose yours?
Well, I'm not concerned about any other county other than Lehigh County.
But I understand that.
The issue
but,
from my standpoint is certification and hearing from our attorney that
but
we're not required to do such.
you may not be required. However, wouldn't it be helpful to have evidence to show that things are perfect?
And what about just tabling this until you have some opinion expressed from some supercomputer experts on this? Because we really, none of us have that expertise here. Maybe you do, I don't know, but somebody that you would trust, why can't you table it until we hear it from somebody who's a super expert on this? And we're also talking about software.
10-year-old software.
10-year-old software, 10-year-old machines.
16-year-old software.
And so if the basis for your rejection is your concern about decertifying the machines, why can't we hear from some hyper expert on that question? What have we got to lose?
I'm used to dealing with experts over the years. One expert has an opinion on this hand, and almost like attorneys, one hand, and the other hand, varying opinions, and I honestly don't see the need to get into it. I am not a technical expert.
None of us here is. Some of us have more sophisticated experience. Some of us here have more sophisticated experience than others, but we need a top-of-the-line expert. And what's the risk to us to table this?
That's certainly an option. That's not an option in the motion that I proposed, which may or may not get seconded or voted on.
Were it up to me, I would simply defer to J. Alex Halderman, as he is the lead computer scientist in this endeavor.
We have nothing to lose.
Okay, but you're not one of the voting members of the board, so I understand that.
In terms of just the question of whether Halderman knows Pennsylvania, this is a paper that he wrote called Security Analysis of the Diebold AccuVote TS Voting Machine. He's the second author there. This is the machine used here in this county. So he's intimately familiar with these machines, and he found that malicious software running on a single voting machine can steal votes with little risk of detection. Voting machine viruses can exist, computer viruses that spread malicious software automatically and invisibly from machine to machine during normal pre- and post-election activity, etc. So it propagates even if the machines themselves are not networked, and that's what he refers to in his affidavit. I don't mean to kind of reopen the discussion, but just since there was a question about Mr. Halderman, if I can ask just for my own understanding of Pennsylvania law, when you say that you're concerned about risk of certification, is it of the certification of the specific results, the certification of the specific machines, of the entire system? What is it that has to be certified? Of these results? Okay.
I thought she was talking about machines.
Yeah, she was
She
talking
was
about
talking about
machines.
decertification of machines.
Certification of our machines as well.
And how would the machines be decertified? Like, what would be the process for that?
It would, depending what the forensic analyst would do to the machines, would be certified.
So we have to get
So
that
you're
question
saying
answered.
but if they were imaged, for example, that wouldn't risk decertification?
Of our particular machines, no.
So then they would only be decertified if the expert found some huge problem, presumably, right?
Correct.
Okay. So the risk of certification that I would assume that if there was a huge problem, you'd want to know that. It'd be good for the machines to be decertified. So I'm assuming then that the risk of certification that we're concerned about here is really just about these specific election results from this year.
That's my biggest concern.
Okay.
So would you rather not know that things are perfect?
Nothing is ever perfect.
Correct. So would you rather not?
I personally am quite comfortable that our machines, our process.
Are you the computer
is-
expert
I
to
didn't say I was a
determine that?
computer
I know,
expert,
but if
and
you're
I've
comfortable with it.
I've read I don't know how many articles from experts over the last 10 years talking about the various machines that are out there and whether they can be hacked or not hacked and all those issues. And I think we've been very open,
Yes.
very extremely transparent today. I mean that's our approach. But it sounds like we have an option here of not agreeing with the request, and that's what my motion was. So I'm gonna hold to that.
You
position.
have been so open and so
Correct.
hospitable to us, but we just want to take this one step further, and we're not attacking you. We've been very impressed with your
I don't feel
professionalism, but we're saying table it till we hear from an expert. You have a valid question, table it till you hear from an expert. What's the harm in that?
I'm one vote.
But you're representing us. You're representing voters in the county.
I represent something like 370,000 people or 350,000 people in the county.
Exactly.
Yes.
My point exactly. So what's the harm in tabling it till we have?
230,000 voters. Any comments, ladies?
Unless there's actual proof that we found something on the recount.
No indication.
I just am not comfortable with anyone touching our machine and server. Not at this point.
Okay, we've got a motion, it was seconded. You want to take a vote? Gail?
Aye.
Aye. There being no other business, I'll make a motion, we end the meeting. All in favor? Aye.
With continue the rest of the.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. You got all the absentee ballots, I'll go through that.
So can you tell us just what is entailed in the next steps of the weekend?
I would just count the ballots, we can hand count the absentees or scan them, and then provisional late spendings.
How many absentees were in this meeting?